Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather. Preston couldn't make it today, but together we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation coaching and strategy. Today's guest brings the kind of leadership perspective that only comes from operating well where failure isn't theoretical. Jeff Niebuhr has spent his career leading large, complex technology and delivery organizations through modernization, restructuring, scale, and execution under real world pressure. He's led global teams of hundreds, delivered mission critical platforms, and operated at the intersection where strategy meets execution and where transformation either works in practice or fails quickly. Jeff brings a pragmatic operator's lens to executive leadership, organizational change, and what it truly takes to deliver measurable results inside real enterprises. Jeff, that all sounds complicated and hard, and I've got some experience there. So I feel like that's a fairly accurate assessment. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
digging in
nice.
with you.
Sure, good to be here. Thanks for having me. It's great.
So maybe just to kind of take a look at the bigger picture, when you step into some of these larger organizations facing change, how do you know they're actually ready for that change? Or maybe what might be the more common case, dangerously unprepared? Like, what are the
Hmm.
signals you look for?
Yeah, yeah. So usually I've been brought in because there's a crisis. Somebody left, or somebody wasn't quite doing it right, or there's a big thing like, oh, we want to go offshore, or we want to bring it back onshore, or some change is needed. And so for whatever reason, the existing leadership, wasn't ready or able or capable or wanted to, or like I said, left. Because my current role is the leadership before me left, and it was like, we need somebody to help out. So I think the first thing I do is, I really want to hear from the folks on the team. Most of the time there's no secrets, right? People know what's wrong, what's working, what's not working. It's very clear, I think, pretty early on who's on board with making things better and who's on board with, maybe not wanting to change. Change is difficult. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for everybody. Um, but I was working one time at Verizon actually. We were wireless kind of versus wireline, and I brought in this wireline team. I've been wireless my whole career, kind of, and he was like, "Why are we trying to move so fast, change so fast?" I was like, this phone, the cell phone I have, it's $1,000. It didn't work 5 years ago. It'll
Right.
be obsolete 5 years from now. Wireline phone, my parents still have one. It worked 50 years ago. It'll probably work 50 years from now. And so the marketplace that we're in in this case with the wireless, most marketplaces we find ourselves in, the change is rapid. So I think sometimes leaders change for the sense of change. I'd much rather be a market forward. Like, what is the market doing that is causing us? We have to be better. We have to be quicker. We have to be cheaper. All of those things are true because we live in a pretty changing, dynamic environment. At least that's where the roles that I find myself in.
Yeah. Everyone wants change, but nobody actually wants to change themselves.
That's
Uh,
right.
when you're looking at it though, like what are the red flags for risk just
Yeah.
on a
Yeah.
transformation level? Like, I mean, sometimes I could imagine it's, junior leadership, like people who don't have the experience. Other times it can be
Hmm.
structural, political, there can be
Yeah.
capital issues. Like, what are the things you see that really tell
Hmm.
you I have to proceed with caution versus I can jump in with
Yeah.
both feet?
Yeah, I think some of the things I've hit, there is like a knowledge base that is resident in a couple people's heads, and that's a huge barrier to change. Like you can't, production has to run, right? You have
Right.
to run, and you can't just say, oh, we're gonna take everything to the cloud next week. It's like, I don't know. That
Just
thing's
like
been
that.
running on the mainframe for 30 years, and only one guy or one girl knows how to really run it, and they hate change, and
Yeah.
they hate you, and they hate this organization. They threaten to quit every month, every quarter. We throw money at them, and that's why you're here, Jeff. And so that's a red flag, right?
Oh yeah.
You can't risk current op to have your banner "We changed everything" flag flown. So that now you're trying to tease out of that person. I've had many people right in that profile that I've been able to lead towards a bit of a change and to be open to it. The first reaction when you say, "Oh, well, let's write down how this thing works," or "Let's document, how you do this," or "Let's bring in a couple people and learn this." I mean, they think, "Oh, you're here to fire me,"
Right.
and it's like only if you have that attitude,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't want to fire anybody, and you're way smart, and you know this system. Even if we go to the new system, you know this old system. You're going to help us build the new system. So it takes a bit. It doesn't always work. There's a lot of people that can't get there, and most of the time they end up kind of leaving on their own when if their power in this life and their identity was wrapped up in I am the person that knows this application or this environment or whatever, and then that's taken away because you've either moved or you've put people there in place or you've done a good job documenting it. They want to go somewhere else, but a few of them stay. So I think that's a
Well,
red flag. Is if it's all stuck in one person's head,
and it's
you
interesting to
can't change
me,
tomorrow.
you hear leaders talk about those situations and they say, "Oh, we can't do this because that." And "can't" is the wrong word. They're
Yeah,
actually saying, "We won't do this or we haven't done
yeah.
this because of we're afraid to make a decision." And it's interesting to me how often "can't" is hiding a decision that people just are afraid to make. And I like the
Yep.
way you're approaching that. It is sometimes it's just about ripping the Band-Aid off, which kind of leads me into the next question is so many leaders can identify the problems. So many leaders can talk about, here's the strategy, we have to go this way, these are the things that need to be done. But for some reason, the execution never happens, or at the very least, it never happens at scale.
Mhm.
So, like, what is stopping most leaders from translating that strategy, that knowledge into the operational reality?
I think hard work. That's the thing, man. It's hard work. It's hard work,
Yeah,
getting people on board. Managers and leaders in this space, they have these constituents, or stakeholders that are enormous. There is the team, they're trying to prepare and move and inspire even a little bit, like, hey, this is
yeah,
the cab vision cast, this is where we're headed. They have the customer layer, whether that's internal, external, doesn't really matter. It is people that have not signed up for change, maybe, and are the ultimate, payers of the salary of the
right.
people and then you have like leadership. Leadership is pretty quick to want to see results and change, but man, the next month, the next quarter, there's another problem. And I probably one of the biggest things I stepped into once in my career, and in my advice is never do a 4-year software development project.
Okay.
That's too long.
Absolutely. I would say, more like 4-month software
Yeah,
development
yeah,
project.
4 months, 6 months. So I switched CIOs in the middle of it. So here comes the new CIO, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Jeff. I'm spending 80% of your discretionary budget over the next 3 years. There's nothing you can do about it." It's like, that could have gone better. So,
Yeah,
it's a difficult situation when you're trying to, like I said, the kind of vision cast, lead people, satisfy customers, and also not like the above leadership. I think it's almost like you want to show results and really not bother them, right? They have
yeah,
so many problems that you can't even really imagine. Like every once in a while, you get a little taste of it. You get to the board meeting or you get to the CEO deck. I had this one weird conversation in that same project where I had to meet the chief legal counsel for all of
yeah,
Verizon. And like this guy was playing ball at a different level that I had
right.
ever played. Like, I was like, "All right, yes, this is a big deal." And it was funny. We had to change, when you accept conditions. Well, because we were switching software of billing, and there was a chance we would fix billing errors. And the legal problem was, well, what about the errors prior to us being there, right? Could someone sue us if their bill went up or went down? And so he and I were just kind of working on that language. That one time, you just go and you
Right.
say you accept these 10,000 words. And one of them was, we're
Yeah,
changing the
yeah.
software and you can't really sue us. So anyhow, it's interesting to play at a higher level, and then also trying to get things done.
Well, and maybe a good example of this that might help, sharpen the conversation. You mentioned when we were chatting before the show that you were building an AI application kind of on the side. It's one, was it a Pinnacle Award? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, Pinnacle Award.
So I'm curious, like, one, share a little bit about the app. I'd love to hear a little bit, but
Yeah,
maybe more importantly, how are you bridging the gap between what you're learning on that side project about how you're bringing AI into the corporate world, how you're overcoming some of that
yep, yep.
resistance and creating the operational side rather than just the strategy side?
Sure, yeah. Cool. So, I started life in IT, and I was never a great coder. I would write too many
Same.
lines of code, and my boss would be like, "Well, you could have cut out like 80% of this if you've said and awk." And I'm like, I don't really know those. This program works. So anyhow, I also dabble in music, and as a lot of IT people do, which is fun. And so a friend of mine and I were writing songs and looking to release them, and kind of got caught up in the TikTokification of like we're gonna post reels, and I don't have time to post reels all day long. So ChatGPT comes along, and I'm like, golly, I have a Mac, so I have a Linux environment. I got ChatGPT. I used to know how to code. Hey, let's start coding. And so, can you help me auto post? And that grew to beyond TikTok to Instagram to Reels to YouTube to X. And now I have this posting engine that posts, 70 clips a day. I have a library management system that's managing like 4,000 clips. And then I have a marketing and advertisement layer that's doing paid ad from social to paid ad into a funnel to try to move into email. So, anyhow, I built this organization, and I don't even know how I got in touch with Pinnacle, but I got an email from them. I submitted and was surprised. We won autonomous enterprise systems. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it is. It is a corporation I built, and it's got maybe 50 employees. Maybe 40 of
Nice.
those and these are all chat, right? So they're virtual employees. So I have 40 chat programmers, and then another 10 spread to accounting, HR, um, and then marketing and advertising. So anyhow, it's really weird. It was really weird. There was a moment when I was going from chat to chat for different programs. Oh, here's the Facebook poster, here's the Meta whatever, here's the advertisement person. And I'm like, ah, this is like talking to my regular team, like on Slack. I'm like, I'm in some weird cyborg thing where I'm an AI manager. And then I have a couple people that I've connected with on Fiverr, and so they're also kind of virtual employees, just kind of gig, and they're on WhatsApp. So I go between WhatsApp and ChatGPT, and I'm like managing this organization, but it's like none of these people are on that. They're like most of them are kind of Chat GPT people. So as I think about how does this translate and I had a podcaster like, well, how would you, well, now knowing what you know now, how does that translate to a 3,000 person IT shop? And I'm like,
Right.
that's interesting because I think we're going to run out of people that can be this new role called AI director or maybe AI architect, but it definitely removed a layer of coding, but I don't think it's just the business unit because I made a lot of very technical decisions that I
Right.
don't think Joe business user is going to be able to do. These are things like release management
Hmm.
and permissions and prod so that I don't change something inadvertently. And so I think it's a pretty technical position, and I think that's what we should be looking at in a corporation is how are we going to take managers and architects and coders and give them an opportunity because it's like a force multiplier. I can run, and this is part time. I work a couple hours in the morning before work and maybe a half a day on Saturday, but I'm running a 50-person organization,
Right.
right? It's like in my part time. So if I was full time and this was my real job, you could run 100 people, I think,
Yeah.
100 chats, and you could run an application. It's pretty sophisticated. I did some work to give to this Pinnacle people. It's like 40,000 lines of code. So I mean, this
Yeah.
is not like a little tiny a set of scripts. It's pretty complex and interrelated. And like I said, there's release strategy, there's a roadmap for each program. So I think that's probably the evolution of this in the corporate world is it becomes a force multiplier for the people that can get on board and get used to this type of work. I think it's interesting and might be the way of the future.
So maybe that's I mean, you're talking about a transformation in the way we work. And I'm curious,
Yeah.
so often when we hear the word transformation, what we really see is wheels spinning and not a lot of distance traveled. So there's a lot of
Mm.
motion, but not necessarily a lot of progress.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm curious, how do you help make sure that that type of transformation can produce measurable results
Yep.
and
Yep.
not just the activity enthusiasm and like the story
Yeah.
that executives love to tell? Like, how do you make that pivot?
Right. Well, I think it is, I think we've all said this for 100 years, is you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I think the similar metrics that we've always had, like, lines of code per programmer per week kind of thing, and bugs per line of code kind of thing, and how many QA tests are we solving per week. So I think it would be prudent to carry those metrics forward. I think we will see, and we've already seen some of that in our organization. It's funny, we measure sometimes like tokens used or credits used, and we see it's like a weird inverse bell curve. Some people use none, and then some people use gobs. And like when I sit down, I'm like, I don't know what's the right. It's like, certainly you probably shouldn't be using none, right? You should
Right.
be using some AI, but should you be using all of it? Like every statement you write goes into AI. Hey, is this code good? Is this code good? So I think that that's still to be determined for me. I sit down with my dev managers. I'm like, we look at the report. I'm like, well, what does this tell us, right? Um, I think I think productivity measurement may be better. I think it's the other example I had was, I bet there was someone in 1994 that was in charge of internet usage for
Yeah.
the company and had slide decks using the internet this month. And
Right.
it was like, well, 2 years later, I mean, that role, that does, everything was just part of the
Oh,
internet.
yeah.
And I think this similar kind of things are going to happen with AI. We had another interesting conversation with a company that helps interview, and so it's trying to find people that are not using AI. And then the conversation took a weird turn because I had some of my dev leads there, and they were like, "Well, what if we want people to use AI? Can you can you test that?" And it was like, that's a little bit different. Their world started trying to weed out people that were using AI to answer the questions. Is that the right weed out? Like, really,
Right.
we wanna, like you said, we wanna get things done. We wanna complete programs. We want to move to production,
Right.
and, and AI is certainly a piece of that, I think.
I'll be curious. You make a good point with 1994, the internet. I would argue almost every company you look at today, almost irregardless of what it does, is a internet first company. They have a
Yeah.
presence online.
Yep.
They reach out to their customers online. They are online. I'm curious when we'll see the first AI first company in the
Yeah.
same way and what that will
Yeah.
look like. But unfortunately, I think that's a topic for a whole nother episode here because we got to wrap up. Jeff,
Sure. Yep.
if anyone is looking for some support on the marketing and the music side or any other part of this,
Yeah.
what's the best way
Sure.
for them to get into contact with
Well,
you?
yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You could just it's Jeff Niebuhr, Niebuhr. Find me on LinkedIn, connect. I have a bunch of connections, and so if you ever need introduction, that's great. Or just want to catch up, that's great too. So that's probably the easiest place. Or you
Awesome.
could go to my website, justintimerecords.com, and you can read a bit about. There's a bit of a white paper out there on how I built the application and the award. It's pretty exciting.
Love it. Yeah, no, that's exciting. For everyone else who's made it to the end of the episode with us, while you're down there leaving that 5-star review that I know everyone is about to leave, we'd also love to hear from you in the comments. We've covered a lot of topics here. I think maybe what I'd love to hear from people about is what is stopping leadership from making that turn from strategy to execution? What do you see as the blocker? I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious what you all think. And then lastly, if you know anyone who could benefit from this conversation, introduce them to Jeff, share the episode, and share the wealth. We always appreciate it. So, Jeff, thank you again so much for being here. For everyone else who's still here, we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thanks.